Thank you. Can you see me as well? I can see myself. Well,
And we see your PowerPoint.
okay, you see the PowerPoint at least, so that's good. So first of all, thank you for having me, and congratulations to this indeed very global event. It's very impressive to sit here and listen into all the interesting speakers. That's fantastic. So I'm really happy to be here. My name is Fredrik. I work for a company called Truecaller. I'll come back to a Truecaller, some history about Truecaller perhaps in the end if we have time, but essentially what Truecaller is, it's an application that you would download on your phone and it would identify the person calling you. With that information, you can obviously do a lot of things, as for instance, the identification, the blocking, categorization, etc. So today, the headline is identifying phone scammers, but I would like to focus a little bit on the actual problem as such. And before I dive into some numbers in relation to this, so that you will get some type of feeling on how big Truecaller is globally, I would like to mention a few KPIs that we have, and we process around 2 million calls per minute in our system. And that would be around 3.2 billion calls a day. We have a global number database of about 5.7 billion numbers. And this is aggregated from various sources, of course, but the main one is, of course, from users that sign up to our service. So that's short on Truecaller. And let me see if I can change slide. All right. $30 billion US. That is the number that it's estimated that Americans lost to spam and scam calls in the past 12 months. This number comes from a survey that Truecaller has been conducting since 2014, together with the Harris poll, and it kind of outlines how big this problem is for one market. So this is the US. 59% of all Americans have received a spam or scam call in relation to COVID-19 in the past 12 months. 59%. That's a pretty high number. 59.5 million Americans report that they've lost money due to phone scams. That's also quite a lot. And finally, $502 of those that were victimized from fraudsters calling them or sending them a text message, the average net loss is per person is $502. So maybe these numbers, could explain how big of a problem this is, and that it is indeed a multi-billion-dollar industry, which we think, of course, is very interesting to address. But of course, this is not only a US problem. So I want to show you a graph here. And this is essentially data from 2020 in terms of spam calls, including scam calls per month across a number of different markets. And here you can see the problem ranging basically from Brazil to Israel, and this is indeed a global problem. And these are calls. But we're also seeing a very big trend and a big increase when it comes to messages. So on average, across our markets shown on the previous slide, you would find that people receive 61 spam and scam SMSs per month. In some markets, it's even up to 110. So the big question here is, obviously, everyone understands that this is a problem. I think that everyone on this call has some personal experience in relation to this. And how can this be stopped? I think the immediate and a bit negative answer is that it's very hard to stop this. this is a big problem. It doesn't take much for someone to call someone and try to trick them. And that's not new, obviously. I think what is new is that this has, of course, become automated. And we have a lot of global mega trends when it comes to the adoption of smartphones, when it comes to bandwidth, and when it comes to globalization. And it means that you can sit in whichever country you want. You can say that you're someone calling from the US, for instance, and you represent a big corporation, but you're really just a loner sitting somewhere in Eastern Asia, for instance. There is a lot of ongoing activity in this area since it is a big problem for society. So there is a lot of initiatives when it comes to regulators, when it comes to nations, when it comes to operators, etc. And we welcome all these initiatives because we're on the same mission. But I would just like to mention a little bit around what we think that Truecaller can bring to the table and how we can help consumers and businesses across the world. On this slide, you see an example on how it would look if you get a call, which we would identify as a spam or a scam call, essentially. The phone on the left shows a fraud insurance calling. We can quickly show what type of category it is, how many spam reports. We also show when someone, the call frequency or when they call, etc. And the one to the right is using our machine learning and AI capabilities to show that this is a potential fraud coming in. And this is dependent, of course, on a lot of data points, and this falls under the point of identifying. And the way we look at the calls is to pick up all the signals that we get from global activity. And I mentioned some numbers in the beginning of 2 million calls per minute. We can make assessment of those in real time and try to identify the right patterns and to improve our models continuously to be able to classify something as a scam or a spam call. And then, of course, we want to inform the users about this activity, and we do so in our product, both when it comes to calls and messages. And we empower the users to make the right call. Do they want to engage with this this person or company or robot that is calling them, or do they not want to do that? And roughly, we identify around 100 million of these calls per day. So it's indeed quite a big problem. Since we have a very limited time slot here, I'm not going into the actual technical details on how this is happening when it comes to the identification, but rather I was hoping just to inform everybody about this problem, and especially when it comes to phone scammers. So very quickly on Truecaller, we have around 300 million monthly users globally, and on an annual basis, we're identifying and blocking about 30 billion calls. And this is a company that was founded in 2009 in Sweden, with a big presence in India. And if you wish to know more, I'll hang around in the chat. I'll answer any questions, or you can have a look at truecaller.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fredrik. It's great. Well, it's on the one hand terrible to see how phones are being misused, just like the internet. But it's also great to see the solution you're offering.